The NHL trade deadline is just 3 days away. What will the Kings do? What should they do? Will they add a left-handed defenseman, a goalie, both, neither? We're going to get into all that and more with LA Kings reporter Eric Stevens of The Athletic on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this content. I am Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for almost 30 years, 20 plus years, the Fox Sports Radio Network, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 16 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for the past 30 years. We are excited to be joined once again by Eric Stevens of The Athletic, who covers the LA Kings and Anaheim Ducks, also an NHL Network contributor. And in his 30-plus years as a writer and reporter, he's worked for the LA Times and the Orange County Register. You can follow him on Twitter at IcemanCometh. Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm well, Eddie. How's it going today?
I'm hanging in there. As you know, I've suffered a hockey injury. I think I'm on long-term injured reserve, but with a lower body injury, to put it into NHL terms. But took a slap shot off the big toe and suffered a little fracture there. But it's actually not feeling that bad. So, but
well, that's good. Everybody plays hurt at this time of year, right?
That's right, absolutely. And I'm no exception. So obviously the trade deadline is coming up fast and furious. It seems like almost today is the deadline with all the movement we're seeing so far today. So things are obviously changing on the fly, but obviously it's a big time for the LA Kings, we think. But I want to ask you about the man who ultimately is going to sign off on whatever the Kings do, and that is general manager Rob Blake. And as a Kings fan, I think he's done a great job rebuilding this team. I think the offseason moves he's made have been great. But this is his first real trade deadline as the GM, as a buyer. He's been a seller before. Your thoughts on, I don't know, confidence level of how he will navigate this? I know he's been an assistant GM before when the Kings have made some ads, but now he's the man. Your thoughts on him navigating this for the LA Kings?
You know, Eddie, you raised a great point because, and I think I alluded to it maybe in a recent piece that might have been right in conjunction with the recent state of the franchise that they had, downtown at Microsoft Theater. That you're right. This is his first time where he's in that position where he can add to this club. I mean, look, whatever flaws that they do have right now, they've played their way into playoff position. They've played their way into, challenging for the Pacific Division title. So the division is wide open. Heck, the Western Conference is wide open. If you want to argue, and you're seeing other teams starting to make moves in order to seize that opportunity. Rob hasn't made that move just yet. Now the deadline is Friday. We still have some time leading up to that. But as of right now, some of those needs that you alluded to, really haven't been addressed. Obviously, there's been that longstanding desire and need for a left shot defenseman, something that the organization itself readily admits and acknowledges. We haven't seen him come through the door just yet. Whether it's also if you feel like there's a need to upgrade or at least fortify the goaltending for the stretch run or whatsoever, that's out there. Maybe adding maybe looking at a third line center as a potential rental, or at least another maybe bottom six forward to just continue building out the depth that this team does have. The clock is ticking. Frankly, the clock is ticking on Rob, and I see this as an opportunity to do something to not only seize the opportunity for in what is a wide open conference where there really isn't a team right now that's head and shoulders above everyone else, but also really to reward, the players that have gotten you to this point, to send a message to Andre Kopitar and Drew Doughty, that, you want to give, you want to give them something. You want to reward them, for something, and give them that added boost as we go into the season's final few weeks here with a lot at stake.
The Jacob Chikrin to LA talk has been going on seemingly forever. And I know we're going to get into some specific names, but that's the biggest name. And I think Kings fans have almost elevated him to this godlike status. I don't know that that's quite what he is, but there's a lot of attractive things about him for sure. What are your thoughts on if that were to happen? What type of difference would he make with the LA Kings realistically?
Well, I'll tell you what, before I get into that, I mean, we just saw that Matthias Ekholm has moved from Nashville to Edmonton. So, you wonder if with the Oilers getting a clear upgrade there, a left shot defenseman, a proven player and winner, if that's going to put more pressure even on Rob to counter, in here. I would like the move. I like the thought of getting Chikrin, just in the sense of, I mean, I don't think he's the one that will say, win them a cup or be, say, that type of decisive factor. But I think he would certainly be a step towards that. And it's a good step to take because of the fact that he's got term left. He's still just 24 years old. No, we're not talking about bringing in a former Norris Trophy winner or someone that is going to win a Norris in the future whatsoever. But he can eat a ton of minutes, and especially so, he wouldn't have to be the number one option on this club. That's still Drew Doughty. They've got a bona fide top pairing in Drew Doughty and Mikey Anderson. He can slot right in on that second pairing and give that blue line a real boost, not just for this season, but for seasons to come. And we know about the excellent contract that he's on, just in terms of being very affordable, $4.6 million, cap hit for two more years after this one. And again, you're getting a player who has had some injury concerns, but when he's healthy, he can be a difference maker. Maybe not necessarily the difference maker in terms of taking, say, a team from a contender to a cup, but he can get them closer.
And we've talked about, it seems as if the line has been drawn in the sand. We obviously don't know what exactly has been offered. I thought, with the comments you mentioned recently, Rob Blake at the event they had for the season ticket holders, kind of the message to me was, we've made our best offer and we're not moving off it. And if anyone's going to move off the offer, it's going to be the Kings, because Arizona doesn't have to trade him. They're going to hold out for whatever it is they exactly want, it seems to me. Now we talk about what you talk about what Edmonton has done. Maybe that ratchets up the pressure a little bit on the Kings. And also, you mentioned it, and I totally agree with you. I'm sure Rob Blake had a plan going into this season as far as what the timetable was for the Kings to be a contender. But the West is wide open right now, and I wonder how much that also is going to motivate him maybe to do something a little bit earlier than he had planned originally going into this season.
I'm of the thought that when you do have the opportunity, you seize it, because the future isn't guaranteed. You can always, obviously, you have to plan. You have to have, big picture in mind. Every GM needs to have that, especially, in this cap era, especially in this flat cap era, until the cap rises 5 or 6 million or whatsoever. So yeah, you have to have the big picture in mind. But this is an instance where, again, they're right there. They're right there. And I'm not suggesting that I'm not suggesting Rob should mortgage the future, right, or whatsoever, or, should trade multiple, first round picks or your best prospect. I mean, they're obviously not going to do that. They've already made Brant Clark and even Quentin Byfield, if you will, off limits, essentially. But no one is suggesting that. But when you have the chance, you do it. You take it. There are moves. It doesn't have to be the huge move necessarily either. Oftentimes it's those little maybe smaller moves, those ones that you don't necessarily think will make a difference, often do. I just think something. I just think Rob needs to do something. This club is right at that point to where they've earned it, but they do need some help here. And I think if you add to this group, I think you're sending a strong message to to those players in there that you've got their back. You've seen what they've done, and you're willing to help out in any way that you can.
We're going to have much more with Eric Stevens, talk more trade deadline, talk specifically about some of the left-handed defensemen that are still out there, maybe talk about some goaltending as well. But real quick, I need to let you know that today's episode of Locked on LA Kings is brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories? Got to try Built Bar. They are delicious. You won't even think they're good for you. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, and coconut almond. They're 130 calories, 4 grams of fat, but a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you can get yours at built.com, or you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. They're in the pharmacy section. In addition to these new flavors, they have also the old favorites like cookies and cream, double chocolate, and coconut puffs. Those are Built Bars, protein bars that taste like candy bars. We've got more with Eric Stevens, and Eric, want to get into some specific names. But before I ask about names that could be coming to LA, are there any names that you think are kind of at the forefront that are either on the Kings active roster or in Ontario with the Reign that would be the most likely to go the other way if the Kings may end up making a deal?
Yeah, it's a good question, Eddie. And I would suspect that, for instance, in a trade like, say, one for Jacob Chikrin, because of the fact that you're getting multiple opportunities with him, you're getting a player with term whatsoever, I could see where maybe a Jordan Spence would be a player from Ontario that would be involved, in a deal like that. We know about Brant Clark. He's as of right now, he's untouchable in that in that instance. But Jordan Spence has been playing very well in the AHL. He's done it for the last 2 years. You can argue that he's just being blocked right now on the right side of that defense when you've got Drew Doughty, obviously, Matt Roy, and Sean Walker, they're ahead of him. Unless they're able to, move out someone to clear a space for Jordan, there just isn't any room there. So I could see where he could be someone that would be involved. Perhaps a Samuel Fagemo up front who's been scoring goals for the Reign. He could be someone that could possibly be Daniel. There's also Alex Turcotte. I think the Kings wouldn't at this point. Not that they've given up on him, but you got to give to get. Especially when you want trying to bring in proven talent. It may be, if anything, more than the sense of the other team believing that Alex is going to be able to move past the injury issues that have dogged him sort of throughout his time in the organization. But those, to me, are some of the names that you could see as potential pieces in a package, for either Chikrin or maybe someone else that's out there.
I know you wrote an article in The Athletic called "Who Says No? Evaluating LA Kings Trade Proposals for Chikrin, Goalies, and More." And you invited Kings fans to play GM, throw out some offers, and you kind of picked at them and thought why they were possibilities. And I would encourage our listeners and our viewers to go check that out. But as far as some of the specific names, we mentioned Jacob Chikrin. We've mentioned Matthias Ekholm. Jake McCabe just got traded the other day from the Blackhawks to the Maple Leafs. So Vladislav Gavrikov is still out there for the Blue Jackets, highly sought after from what we hear. Then you've got some other players like Joel Edmondson from Montreal, Shane Gostisbehere from Arizona. Any of those names that I mentioned, or any that I didn't mention, as far as left-handed defensemen, out there that you think could be a good fit for the Kings?
Yeah, you know what? I did something. It's been a little bit ago now, whatsoever, in terms of I think it was 10 potential targets that they could look at on that left side. Yeah, some of them obviously have are have been moved or off the table now. Someone else that is maybe an under the radar possibility whatsoever is Nick Holden in Ottawa. Yeah, he's a left shot defender, and I believe I can't think of it right now, but I know he's got history with someone within the Kings organization whatsoever. That's another name, but some of those, like you said, that I've mentioned. I know the Galvakov situation. It's my understanding that he's kind of become a little bit frustrated with being held out for a long time here now. I'm certainly, I know he wants to have some closure. You'd imagine, even though Jacob Chikrin has been reportedly saying the right things, there's got to be some frustration, building with him, as well. So there are still some people out there. Hope is not lost in terms of, adding someone here at the deadline. So we will see. It's gonna be quite the interesting. I would say next 48 hours or so. I joked. I said, Sunday with the T-Mobile Hour and everything that was going down there. Sunday is no longer a day of rest apparently on the NHL calendar whatsoever.
No,
and that's continued
sure.
on through Tuesday. So things are changing almost by the minute, and it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for fans, for people like you and me, and all who are interested in this game and in this league out there.
As you mentioned, it's not a secret in any way, shape, or form that the Kings' number one need is a left-hand defenseman. But there's also been some discussion, understandably so, about possibly upgrading in net now, and who knows if maybe in the future. I think going into the season, nobody made it a secret that the long-term solution for LA and net it was not currently in the organization. I think that was the feel of most people. And the Jonathan Quick thing certainly makes it sticky. I mean, greatest goalie in franchise history is really struggling. How does that play into it? You want to give him his afforded respect, but at the end of the day, it's a business and it's about team. If they do look to add a goalie, do you think they want to add some insurance for Phoenix Copley, or do you think they want to actually go out and find a quote unquote real number one goalie?
Yeah, that really is a tough question, and like I said, the quick dynamic, so to speak, whatsoever, is another wrinkle that's in there because theoretically, if you bring in someone, especially if it's someone that you think will be your starting goaltender, whether it's in the final weeks of the season or game one of the playoffs, if they make it. Essentially, unless you were to move one of those two that are there right now, you're essentially you're totally casting aside Jonathan Quick, and that's almost unimaginable, to even think of even now, even with his struggles, this season or whatsoever. But like you said, Eddie, sometimes cold, hard decisions need to be made, at some point because you're in this to win ultimately. Especially when you're now at the stage where you are in the position to do so. It's another thing when you're rebuilding and all that or whatsoever. Well, the Kings have done that. They've been through that. That's past history now. It's really much more about now. So yeah, it's I saw, as before we got on here, Jonas Corposalo with Columbus being held out whatsoever. That immediately raised my antenna. In fact, I checked in with the Kings there in terms of whether I needed to be on high alert or whatsoever, and I was told no, but you never know. Things can change in a second. Somebody else I thought of as well, and I've seen is Cam Talbot in Ottawa. I believe he's on an expiring deal. He and Todd McClellan certainly have a history. Todd McClellan rode Cam in Edmonton. I think he played 73 games, that season when they got into the playoffs. So there's history there. And again, he's on an expiring deal, so that's not unheard of to see them, look in that direction. So I'm sure they've had, Robin and staff has had some hard, discussions here in terms of whether they've got full belief in Phoenix in handling the job, going down the stretch here, or, if they've got to at least, bring in someone to support him, or be there if he falters, or like you said, if they even go a level up and, go with someone that they're going to feel much more comfortable about in a game one or, in a 7-game situation. That's how they've got to think of this looking ahead.
And I've even, and take for what it's worth, but seen some things about a blockbuster with Arizona that would bring both Jacob Chikrin and Kirill Vejmelka over as well. And now with Nashville putting the for sale sign out, it seems like on everybody. I've even heard UC Saros' name mentioned as well. So there's certainly some big names out there available. And it'll be very interesting to see if LA does anything, like we said, to upgrade a net or have some insurance as well for Phoenix Copley.
Which is something too, which is something. I don't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah.
Because you don't normally see goalie moves. Goalie moves are notoriously difficult to make at the deadline. Usually you see those kind of moves made in the off season, or whatsoever. So like you said, to see these potential names being sort of bandied about and, in today's case, Korpisalo even being held out, that really makes it intriguing. It really does.
For sure. We've got a little bit more with Eric Stevens from The Athletic. But real quick, want to let you know today's episode of Locked On LA Kings also brought to you by Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your health. And it is also just 1 gram of sugar. Costs you less than $3 a day. It's 1 scoop in a cup of water, and that's all you need to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Wrapping it up with Eric Stevens at The Athletic. And Eric, I've talked on some previous shows about how Rob Blake doesn't really have pressure on him to make a significant move because of the market. With all due respect to LA, the ownership really is kind of a hands-off ownership group in LA. There's no media pressure to speak of. Let's be honest about that, despite your and I's best efforts to give the Kings as much publicity as we can. The fan base, there's always going to be a certain group of the fan base that's going to be upset on social media if the Kings don't do what they want them to do. But do you think that lack of pressure is a good thing or a bad thing for the LA Kings?
Yeah, that's something to think about. I thought about that from time to time because I know, obviously in my travels, being in other markets, especially more, say, hockey mad markets or whatsoever, that sometimes that pressure, that external pressure can sometimes, be a good thing. Not that GMs, or necessarily make moves result, with, corresponding to how they're being viewed, from the outside or whatsoever. But I think there is something to, there being some, places where, like in Toronto, New York, Boston, Pittsburgh, so on and so on, Edmonton, where that kind of pressure ups the urgency factor. I think that truly is something that is real, and whether maybe more of that is needed, in a market like this, one could argue, both sides of it. You really can, and I know I'm sort of driving it right down the middle here, but you can see, both angles of it because, the thing with fandom, which is I've always found interesting whatsoever, it's great, when you're.
Apparently, we have lost Eric momentarily. We've had this happen a few times in the past, so hopefully Eric can rejoin us here as we were wrapping up the interview. Um, I was going to certainly ask him, as someone who covers the Kings and the Ducks, and being very plugged into the Pacific Division, what he thought about some of the moves that have been made recently. We talked about Matthias Ekholm apparently going to the Edmonton Oilers, so that's a big ad for them. We talked about. Let's see if we can get Eric back. Hey, Eric, we just froze on you for just a second there.
Sorry about that. It looks like my internet connection went astray for a little bit here.
Not a problem. Hey, I was mentioning, obviously, you cover the Kings and the Ducks, so you cover the Pacific Division, obviously, very, very well. We talked about the move that Edmonton made earlier today. Ivan Barbashev picked up by the Vegas Golden Knights. I thought that was a nice addition for them, a guy who really fits in well as far as the style of playoff hockey, hard-nosed player for them. As far as that top four in the Pacific, Seattle obviously included in there as well, with Edmonton, the Kings, and the Oilers, and Vegas, excuse me.
Yeah.
We've seen a couple of moves already. Do you think there's going to be any other big moves made by any of those four teams that you're hearing as far as the competition for the Kings?
You know what? I saw on social media that I think Ron Francis gave an interview with the Seattle media outlet that he didn't foresee making a major move there. And maybe in some sense that makes sense. I mean, the Kraken are ahead of schedule. In a way here, they're sort of, they're sort of playing with house money, so to speak, in terms of being in playoff position whatsoever. And I don't think he wants to strive too far from his sort of long-term plan in terms of building a contender for several seasons whatsoever, as opposed to just one. But yeah, no, I mean, Edmonton, Ken Holland is under some pressure there.
Yep.
He's under a lot of pressure. We talked about, put pressure in different markets or whatsoever. You've got maybe two of the top 5 or at least top 8 players on the planet on your own team, especially the best player on the planet right now. He's got to win. They've got to win with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl right in their prime. So that you can clearly see why he had to upgrade there. Especially coming after the run to the conference finals, last year. Vegas does what Vegas does. They're always in the mix, for things. And sometimes if you're a fan, you like that. That you have a GM that's sort of a damn the future, approach to his franchise, and it's going to always be about now, and we'll deal with the after effects down the line whatsoever. Which way is Rob going to go here? That's all. That's what we wonder here. That's what we wonder. Which way is Rob going to go? Especially now when you're seeing these other teams making moves now.
Absolutely. One word answer for you: Vegas, LA, Edmonton, and Seattle, all definitely making the playoffs this year.
Yes.
I agree. We just had a roundtable the other day with all the other Locked On hosts from those markets, and it was pretty fun. And we all agreed we're all going to make the playoffs, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens or not. That is Eric Stevens of The Athletic. By the way, Eric, I have been monitoring my phone. Nothing has gone down involving the LA Kings since we last spoke. So we made it through. And we'll be reacting as soon as something does go down. I know we'll be reading your stuff on The Athletic as far as the reaction, and looking forward to that. Again, that is Eric Stevens of The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at IcemanCometh. Always a pleasure, Eric. Really, I know you are so busy covering those 2 NHL teams. Always appreciate your time. Thank you. And hopefully we can talk with the Kings making a playoff run at some point.
Hey, I always appreciate you reaching out and being on, Eddie. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is going to be fun going ahead. Yeah, let's see what happens over the next 48 hours, and then in the weeks after that. But it'll be
All right.
fun.
Sounds good, Eric. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate it. I know you're going to be busy.
Take care now.
Okay. That was Eric Stevens of The Athletic. Again, always appreciate his time. As we wrap up the show here, I did want to remind you the Kings are closing out their 5-game road trip tonight in Winnipeg. Face-off time, 5 p.m. LA time. It will be on Bally Sports West and the Kings iHeart Audio Network. We're going to have a full recap of the game coming up tomorrow. A couple other quick notes. Trevor Moore placed on injured reserve by the Kings today. Lower body injury. Meanwhile, they've activated Carl Grundstrom off of IR. And also, New York Rangers forward Keandre Miller suspended 3 games by the NHL today for spitting in the face of Drew Doughty over the weekend. By the way, no change in Pacific Division standings after Monday's action as both the Golden Knights and Oilers lost. So the Kings are still in second place, 2 points back of Vegas for first, and 2 points up on Edmonton for that second spot. Also, don't forget Thursday, we got a feedback show. Any of your thoughts going on involving the trade deadline or anything else with the Kings, you can send an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can post your comments in the section below. Thank you for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen. Always available for you on YouTube as well. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings. Have a great day, and go Kings go.